I'm going to be talking about actually what brought us together is a group we call Radical, and but I'm going to do it as by telling you a little story about how my company Nearsoft came about. I'm one of the co-founders of Nearsoft, um, and from the beginning, we've been a co-managed company. We didn't know that. We just had good intentions, and we wanted to make a company that worked for everybody, not just the founders, and work in every way, not only the money, but also we wanted people to feel good, like like they were part of the company. And so then we read this guy, and we were groping in the dark and knowing what to do. Then we read this book, Ricardo Semler's Maverick. In the notes, there's also a URL to other things that he's working on. I highly recommend you look at everything he's done. If you think you're crazy, Pietro, he's really crazy because he was doing this stuff in the 80s in Brazil, in manufacturing. So we thought for us it should be easy, right? So we get a lot of inspiration from him. The company was founded in 2007, and we've been operating since then. We started with 8 people, a very small group, in a very small office. It was really a crappy house that was falling apart, but it was an office. And today we have about 330 people, more or less, and 3 offices and 2 co-working spaces that we're going to turn into offices by the end of the year. In terms of revenue, our revenues have been growing every year, and our margins have been growing every year. We're in the business of uh, making team extensions, software development team extensions, and that has a very low margin. That business is a very low margin. But we felt that we were offering a above board service by virtue of the culture, by virtue of the way that we were operating, and people have been happy to pay for that. And we were acquired in 2017. So 2 years ago, we were acquired by a bigger company with a similar business model, but very different, very hierarchical. And but they agreed to let us run autonomously and all that. And so far, it's holding. In fact, they've been sending their HR people to our site to learn how we do things, but it's not like that. But they have the right intention, which is good. So we've had no titles, no managers, no HR, and no fiat hierarchy. Now, I use this term a lot, fiat hierarchy, and I know it's confusing. So I'm not talking about that fiat, okay? Um, I'm talking about that fiat, orders, sanctions, edicts, right? That some authority does, like a boss or the owner or whatever it is. You were talking about an example of somebody. He asked somebody why some things work certain ways because my boss said so. That's normal. That's what we all, and at different levels, but that's what we accept as normal, and that's what we're trying to change. Um, that's a fiat hierarchy, right? You have the king, and you have the plebes at the bottom, and slaves and stuff like that. And that's a fiat hierarchy as well. Somebody decided, the CEO, that you're going to be a COO, and you're going to be a CFO, and you're going to be the whatever CRO, and I don't even know what that means. But and then you turn around, you decide that he's going to be the VP of product, and it's nonsense, right? You are any of those things. Any one of us can be any of those things on any time of the day, but not all the freaking time. Um, so look similar, right? Except people dress better in the old days. Um, so instead, we chose to start by leading with trust is the phrase we use, and we use it for everything. We use it with our clients. We use it with inside our office, um, our vendors, everybody, and we treat everybody. We treat each other as adults. I wanted to be treated as like an adult and not being asked for permission all the time. Like my kids said, "Oh, can I do this? Can I do that?" Yeah, when you're 3 years old, that's fine, but dealing with a 30-year-old, why are you asking for permission? Um, And people still, because we accept it and we think it's normal, people will still come to me and say, "Oh, I'm gonna have to go pick up my kids at 2 o'clock." Okay, and why are you telling me? And both sides have to learn how to operate in this different kind of environment. So it's not only the guy who would normally be the boss. I hope I'm not messing up the audio, but learning how to let go, but also the people who don't think of themselves as bosses realize that no, we are in certain situations we are. So the person who asked me about picking up the kids, she's the expert on picking up the kids at 2 o'clock. I know nothing about that. Um, the other thing is we were from very early we decided that we wanted to create a safe space for people where people could try things out and fail and not be ridiculed for it or punished or anything like that. The way we express that is win or learn. So you try something and you either A, B, C and D happens, or A, B, C and H happen. Now, what did happen? What you learn something from it. And traditional companies don't have that option. Traditional companies, you do A, B, C, and D had better happen, right? If not, I fire you. And then, or he fires you because he's your boss. And then we try it again, and it doesn't work, and you fire him because he obviously is doing something wrong. You never learn why A, B, C leads to H, and maybe that's an innovation. That's what you want, right? Um, and to keep things fluid. So with that and the inspiration from Semler and some of the other things we learned from other people, that's how the company has come about. Um, Now, in the process, we had to invent a lot of structure, a lot of practices, roles, tools, and skills. None of the things that you do in a company today goes away. Nothing. I mean, you still have to do the accounting. You still have to. Some people have to make decisions, some big decisions, um, and things like that. You have to calculate salaries, et cetera, et cetera. But is driven by circumstances. It's driven by need, not because he's the VP of CFO or whatever of finance. He's going to decide salary for everybody. It's okay. Let's talk about salaries. Let's get together. And so we have to invent a lot of these things. Of all the structures, this is the most important one. Having a governance framework and having an explicit written governance framework. The problem is all these things exist in every company, but they're inside the head of the boss. So you got to go to the boss for everything. Hey, boss, can we do this? What do you want us to do next week? What do you want us to do that week? And it changes also. That's why a lot of companies fails because they start charging that way and then they see something over there and they start charging that way. It's a squirrel problem. A squirrel, another squirrel. And you start doing that. And this way, you have that conversation once a year. You write things down. And in the case of some of these things are longer term, but you have a conversation with everybody, you write it down, and then that's the role, that's the boss. That's what follows leads your efforts. In particular, oh, and this I call this an alignment framework, not a governance. Governance sounds like governance. Doesn't sound good. Um, of all these, mission to me is the most important. For example, at Nearsoft, I was talking to Pietro the other night, and purpose is not so well defined. It's kind of murky, and I'll give you one answer, and my partner will give you a slightly different answer, and after about six of those, it starts to change dramatically. But we have a mission that we define for 5-year periods. That's the boss, right? Um, that was our mission for 2012, 2017, right? So there was a revenue goal, and then some inspirational goals, becoming a talent destination, et cetera. So whenever you're doing your plans, whenever you're setting down your goals, you look at what would make the boss happy, and that's what you do. You do something that contributes to that. Now, let's say that you look at that, and given what you do, you go, yeah, but I'm not contributing to any of those, really. Fine. Then we have mechanisms to raise your hand, get good people together, and come up with a different initiative. And for example, that's the way that we created a small product group within the company. We're a service company, right? We always work for other people. And but somebody said, I got this idea for a product. And we said, well, we're not a service company. It's not in any of those. And so he went off and started an initiative based on that. The year we didn't have money to support him, but the next year we assigned a budget to it. And now it's grown to about 7 people on the team, and they're paying their own salaries. They're breaking even. They're not making money, but they're breaking even in 3 years, which is pretty good. This is the new boss. We killed the old boss in 2017, buried him, have a celebration, and there's a new boss. Um, and so that little idea that started as somebody coming up with something that didn't fit is going to become 50% of our revenues in 2022. Okay. Um, so, so we did all this as a do-it-yourself um, kind of thing. We did it on our own and stuff like that. But there's a bunch of models out there in what I call packages, package kind of solutions. Holacracy is very popular in certainly in Holland, and but all over the place, not just Holland. Holacracy is kind of the second version of sociocracy. Teleacracy is actually not teleology. Teleacracy, I have no idea what it is, but it was in the list. Um, Organizational democracy, we know we're about that. And hierarchy, I thought it was a really cool name that somebody came up with. Um, the thing about all these packages is that they're at least better than what we are used to today. It's a step forward. Um, but eventually, you want to create your own model because every company is different. In fact, for us, the rules that applied to us 10 years ago would not apply to us today, and vice versa. If we try to come up with impose all those rules on the 2-year-old, 1-year-old Nearsoft, it would be a disaster, right? Different people, and the thing that we say is whenever we hire somebody, we're changing the company, so be really, really conscientious about that. Um, so you got to make it your own. So start from wherever these models are, or do it yourself or whatever, but have a strategy for moving to your own and making it your own and have it fit. Um, we didn't do so. I think we did pretty well on the self-management side, but we didn't do much in the area of co-ownership. The way this goes is it runs from a proprietary, which is again normal. I own the company and you don't. I own the company and neither do you. To the worker-owned cooperative, and I guess it's very popular in this area. Very popular, and very it's better known in Europe. It turns out that the U.S. has the most worker owners in terms of raw numbers because it's bigger, you know. But most people don't know what a co-op is. Have no idea these things exist. Um, they know about food co-ops and stuff like that, but worker-owned co-ops is like, really? What a so we ended up doing an option plan. And I think I was telling you or you in the morning that we wanted to do it 40-60. In other words, my partner and I would own 40% of the company, and everybody else owns 60%. But we couldn't. The lawyers told us because we were officers of the company, we had to own at least 51% of the company. And then for some other reason, we had to own like 60%. So it ended up being a third, a third, and a third. But I think we can go further than that. So at some point, I'll make some proposals and stuff like that. So this is what we find normal today, right? And we went in the direction of co-management. And like I said, I think we've done fairly well in that respect. But we haven't really gone to the ownership part and making something that's more democratic in the ownership side. So that's the next area for us to work on. And when you combine these two things, that's what we call radical. Because now you have a company that's truly owned by everybody that works in it and truly run by everybody that works in it. In a sense, it's like going back to the future, right? In the beginning, we were all sharing whatever fruits we found and stuff like that, and there was no poverty. Think about it. Poverty is a human invention, right? So we need to move towards not having poverty by doing these kinds of things. There's only one small piece, but it's a very important beachhead because most of us spend most of our time at work, right? The best hours of your day are spent at work. When you get home at night, you're tired, and I used to, my kids are now older, but when they were little, I would go upstairs to read to them, and they would fall asleep on the floor, and they would go downstairs and tell her, "Oh, Papa fell asleep," and we're walking over him and stuff like that. Um, so it wasn't the best time that I was giving them. So if we can get people to accept as normal that they have a voice, that they can decide things and make big decisions, not just whether to wear this shirt or that shirt, then it's going to have an impact on the bigger society. So if there's anything I want you to remember, is two things: people and organization. In terms of people, people want to make meaning, not just money. That's not my saying, that's somebody else's, Chuck Blakeman's saying, but that's very important. So making sense of things, like in that case that I said, where this person didn't see a fit in what he wanted to do, and he brought it to us all, and we made room for it. That was meaningful to him, okay? And he created this whole big thing. And belonging, the worst thing you can do to a human being is ostracize him from a group. So if we start talking to people over here and we leave these people out, it's going to be painful. So again, doing whatever you can to create a platform people can do meaningful things to them and feel like they belong. They're not the only crazy ones, as you were saying today. And in terms of organization, people talk about principles and values and all the rest of it, and they're all very important. It's all to put it down on paper. But you have to have these two. This is like the rails when you're walking along a bridge. Transparency and decentralization, they're very important. If you don't have that, if you don't have transparency, then we're not talking at the same level because he knows something that I don't. So how can we have a real discussion? And the same thing with decentralization. This is the way I think of it. It's DNA for companies. And the same way that DNA is a very stable, scalable kind of thing, it can work that way for companies. So um, think of the impact. If you do anything in this direction, think of the impact it's going to have on people, on their health, and the business health. And we're a good example of that. Is that we have higher margins than a lot of the competitors that we know the margins for. So when this bigger company bought us, we shared what our margins were, and it was like, really that low compared to us, because they have to spend a lot of money on hiring this management elite, and we don't. And then in terms of not only business, but also society and wealth. So that's it. I'm done.